Let's talk about one of the most fundamental stories in the entire universe. How does life actually make more life? It's happening everywhere, all the time, but the strategies behind it, well, they're nothing short of genius.
But before we even get into the how, let's back up a step. Why do organisms reproduce in the first place? Really, think about it. You need to eat, you need to breathe. Those things keep you alive. Reproduction, it doesn't. Actually, it takes a ton of energy. So, why even bother? And here's the answer, and it's kind of profound. An organism isn't reproducing for its own sake. It's doing it to make sure the entire species keeps going. You could say it's the ultimate long-term play. All right, so here's our roadmap. We'll start with that big why question. Then we're going to look at the blueprint of life itself, DNA, and its so-called flaws. From there, we'll compare the two master strategies, asexual reproduction, which is basically a cloning strategy, versus sexual reproduction, the variation engine. We'll even see how we humans fit into all this before we get to the ultimate key to survival.
Okay, first up, life's blueprint and its flaws. Because to get reproduction, you have to start with the source code of life itself.
And that source code, that instruction manual, is DNA. It has all the info, the blueprints for an organism's entire body design. So at its very core, reproduction is really just about one thing, making a copy of this blueprint. But here's where it gets really, really interesting. Ideally, you'd want a perfect, flawless copy every time, right? But in the real world, well, no process is perfect. The copying machine always makes tiny, random mistakes. This means the new copy is incredibly similar, but it's never exactly identical. And this is the big twist, the most important part of the whole story. Those little flaws aren't a bug. They're the single most important feature in the history of life. This constant drip of tiny variations isn't some accident. It is the engine of evolution. It's the reason we have everything from bacteria to blue whales. All right, so with that huge idea of variation in mind, let's look at our first major strategy, the asexual approach. This one is all about making copies and doing it fast. So asexual reproduction is pretty straightforward. You've got one parent and it creates a new generation all by itself. We're basically talking about biological cloning. And life has come up with some incredible ways to pull this off. You've got fission, where something like an amoeba just splits right down the middle. There's budding, where a hydra literally grows a little mini-me on its side that just pops off. Some things use fragmentation. You break off a piece, and that piece grows into a whole new organism. And maybe the wildest is regeneration, where an animal like a planaria can regrow its entire body from just a tiny little piece. It's all about making copies and doing it quickly. So, if making fast copies is so efficient, why doesn't all life do it? Well, that brings us to our second strategy, the sexual gamble. Because sometimes the problem isn't making perfect copies, it's creating variety and fast. Welcome to the variation engine. So, this is the whole point. The goal of sexual reproduction is to deliberately supercharge variation. Instead of just waiting for those slow, random copy mistakes, you take the DNA blueprints from two different parents and you shuffle them together. You're creating a totally new combination of traits with every single offspring. And this really shows you the fundamental trade-off, right? Asexual, one parent. It's super fast, but you get very little new variation. Sexual, two parents. It's slower, more complicated, but wow, it is a powerhouse for creating new combinations. It's the ultimate choice between being consistent and being adaptable. So, to see how this variation engine really works, let's look at a case study that, we're all pretty familiar with, how we humans do it. So, first up, the male system. Its job is really focused. Produce and deliver one half of that genetic blueprint packaged into millions and millions of tiny germ cells called sperm. And then we have the female system. Its job is to produce the other half of the blueprint, the egg. But that's not all. It's also specially designed to be the place where those two blueprints can actually combine, and where that new, totally unique individual can grow and be nurtured. Okay, so we have these two powerful strategies. One's built for consistency, the other for variety. So let's bring it all home and ask the big question. What does all this mean for the survival of a species in the long run? This quote really just nails it. Look, if you're in an environment that never, ever changes, making perfect copies is probably a great strategy.
But the world, it doesn't work like that. It's always changing. New diseases pop up, climate shift. In that kind of world, variation isn't just useful, it's everything. It's the species insurance policy against getting completely wiped out.
And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. Asexual reproduction is a brilliant strategy for a stable present. Sexual reproduction is a huge gamble on an uncertain future. So, in a world that never stops changing, which strategy really offers the best blueprint for what's to come?